Hi, my name's Hannah Greaves, and I'll be introducing my research proposal. The research domain is multimedia learning, with Dr. Harper as my supervisor. The overarching topic of the research domain set by Dr. Harper was multimedia and learning, how subtle modifications impact on learning. The aim of this research is to replicate studies that are being conducted in the USA and other countries about how new information via multimedia tools is learned and understood. Based on what we know about cognitive load and how instructional materials can affect learning, what other factors can be considered to facilitate this process? My area of focus is to examine the modality effect on learning when images are presented simultaneously and sequentially. Specifically, the research questions that I wish to explore are, is the modality effect limited to simultaneous presentation? Will narration be more effective than text regardless of image presentation? And will simultaneous narration be superior to sequential narration? The design of the multimedia instructional materials is crucial to the learner developing meaningful understanding and transfer of knowledge. Cognitive load theory has influenced the development of multimedia learning, helping to identify the elements that can contribute to the cognitive load of the learner. Avoiding cognitive overload is a challenge for instructors and learners, as meaningful learning often requires using processes that have severe cognitive limits. Currently, evidence suggests that multimedia presentations, including on-screen text and images, overload the visual processing channel, leading to cognitive overload. The modality effect implies that to avoid cognitive overload of the visual channel, students find multimedia learning better when words are presented as narration rather than on-screen text. Currently, research into the modality effect supports this notion. However, there is conflicting knowledge on how this interacts with image presentation. Studies incorporating images with the modality effect have found mixed results, with some finding evidence for the effect and others a reversed effect. Two possible explanations. The visual spatial load hypothesis attributes the modality effect to the fact that auditory and visual information are processed in different working memory subsystems. This explains the modality effect as it prevents the cognitive overload from occurring in the visual subsystem. Visual text and pictures compete for limited space in the visual working memory, resulting in interference with each other, whereas pictorial and information and auditory text are processed in different working memory subsystems, resulting in no interference. Thus, visual spatial load hypothesis predicts a general advantage of auditory over visual text accompanying pictures independent of presentation condition. The temporal contingency theory, however, attributes the modality effect to avoiding the violation of temporal split attention. One way to establish this is audio text rather than visual text, as it is possible to simultaneously look at picture and listen to a text, whereas visual text and images cannot be simultaneously focused on, which creates a non-avoidable temporal split attention. Thus, the temporal contingency assumption predicts the auditory advantage should be only restricted to simultaneous presentation. This project is a 2x2 between subjects design, which will have text modality and image presentation as factors and test performance as a dependent variable. The participants will be randomly allocated to one of four conditions. Condition 1, simultaneous narration and image. Condition 2, simultaneously text and image. Condition 3, sequential narration followed by image. And condition 4, sequential text followed by image. The participants will include students over the age of 18 of all genders and ethnicity. The study will include a demographics questionnaire as well as a prior knowledge test to assess the individual's level of knowledge on the chosen field that will be tested. For individuals who score too high in the prior knowledge test, their data will not be used in the study. The presentation will contain information relating to cause and effect on areas such as the formation of lightning, a tornado, waves, electricity, etc. The final knowledge test will include verbal and picture recall in the form of multiple choice questions on information they have been presented with, as well as transfer questions to assess the deep level of learning that has occurred. The proposed statistical analysis will be a two-way and over. The proposed timeline includes a 6-week blocks of the following subjects. PSY 4402, which will include the ethics and introduction, and the ethics application must be submitted by the 6th of October and be approved prior to the start of PSY 4403, which will include data collection and the methods section. And finally, PSY 4404, made up of the results and discussion, as well as the final thesis submission. The sample is students over the age of 18. As these are the only inclusion criteria, it is time effective to collect the data as opposed to a highly restrictive sample. We will use convenient sampling to accommodate for the short timeline. Participants will be recruited via online advertisement through social media, leading to a snowball technique to build up as many participants as possible. Finally, the project is low from an ethical perspective as it involves a test and doesn't involve the use of medication or manipulation. This research project is important as multimedia learning is becoming increasingly prevalent in education, with presentations often including both on-screen text and images and a speaker. Therefore, findings from this study will concern the design of future learning materials in order to optimize effective multimedia learning. Currently, there is evidence for the modality effect, but there is limited conflicting knowledge on how it compares to text when image presentation is included as a factor. This project will link together the individual previous multimedia effects found including the modality effects, sequential versus simultaneous presentation, along with including the visuospatial load hypothesis and the temporal contingency assumption. Thus, this project will become one of a small number of studies to compare the modality's effectiveness as well as presentation effect.